Hello everyone, and today we're going to be looking at implicit differentiation and how to solve some basic implicit differentiation problems. So starting with number 1, so we are asked to determine dy over dx in each of the following. So the first problem we have is x squared plus 4y squared equals 25. So we're going to start off the very first step with doing an implicit differentiation problem, which is right over here. So the first step is going to be to differentiate both sides of the equation. So let's go ahead and do that here. So to do that, we're finding the derivative of this here and then also this. So let's go through that. So what is the derivative of x squared? So we are using the power rule. So hopefully you've learned how to find derivatives by now. I will make a separate video on that in case you haven't, but essentially what you do is you bring the power down, so you get 2x, and if there's a number here, then you would multiply it, and then the power becomes less by 1. So the power was 2, so it would be 2 minus 1, which is 1, so this is technically 2x to the power of 1, but that is implied, so we do not have to write that. So we have that plus, what's the derivative of 4y squared? So same idea, we're going to bring the 2 down. Now we have a number, so we have to multiply the 2 by 4. So 2 times 4 is going to be 8. 8y, because, again, y squared becomes now y2 minus 1, which is 1, which is implied, so you don't have to write that. Now don't forget that with implicit differentiation, anytime you are taking the derivative of a y value, you have to include dy over dx, which basically means in respect to y. That's essentially what you're saying here. Equals the derivative of 25. And the derivative of any constant is always going to be 0. So this is just 0. So we found the derivative of both sides of the equation. Let's take a look at our step 2. Okay, so now you need to collect dy over dx terms on one side and then solve for dy over dx. Well, we only have one term that has dy over dx, so this shouldn't be too difficult, but we need to basically get rid of any term that does not have dy over dx because we are solving for dy over dx. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move 2x over to the other side because we are trying to isolate dy over dx. And now we're left with 8y dy over dx is equal to negative 2x. Now, remember, think of dy over dx as a variable, kind of like an x value, essentially. And so what would you do to isolate this variable? How do we get just dy over dx by itself? Well, we would have to do algebra, right? So inverse operations. We have to divide both sides by 8y. So let's go ahead and do that. So we'll divide that on both sides, so this will cancel. And I am left with dy over dx, which is what we are looking for. That's good. Negative 2x over 8y. So we can simplify that. So that will be negative 1/4. So negative, we can just do x. We don't have to write 1 because, again, 1 is usually implied. And then the bottom becomes 4y. That is the most we can simplify. So that will be our answer right here. All right, moving on to the second problem. And I do encourage you to write this problem down in your notebook and write down the steps and follow along with me so that you have something you can reference when you are doing your homework problems or reviewing for a test. So I encourage you to write this problem down as we go through it. So this problem is 12y squared equals 5x cubed. So the steps are the same, right? So the first step is to differentiate both sides. So what is the derivative of 12y squared? Go ahead and try that. Pause the video and then come back to it once you've gotten the derivative. Alright, so hopefully you've tried finding the derivative of both sides of this equation. Let's go ahead and go through it now together. So the derivative of 12y squared is going to be 24y dy over dx. Do not forget the dy over dx, that's very important. Anytime you have a y, you're always going to put dy over dx after the derivative. Equals, and then the derivative of 5x cubed is going to be 15x squared. And now we have very similar to what we had before, where we need to isolate dy over dx, and we can do so by dividing both sides by 24y to get dy over dx by itself. So now these are going to cancel, and I am now left with dy over dx equals, and now we can simplify. Simplify 15x squared over 24y. So we can write this as 5x squared over 8y, because we can divide top and bottom by 3. And that is all we can do. As far as simplifying, that's all we can do. So we can leave our answer just like this. And that is how to do this problem.